Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the very first episode of this new series I'm starting where I'm going to try to watch every movie featured in Brian Raftery's book, Best Movie Year Ever, all about movies that came out in 1999. So, the first movie featured in the book is The Blair Witch Project. I had never seen The Blair Witch Project until just a couple days ago. I had heard about it, had read about it, pretty much knew the outcome of the story and all that going in, but rented it on Amazon and really liked it. So little less time than an hour and a half. I think it's like an hour and 22 minutes. So pretty short. Definitely um, fast moving. I think definitely didn't feel like I was watching it for that long, but I like that it was a fairly short runtime. Has some notes that I've written down here. So first thing I really liked was the credits and the opening title sequences. How they were done. They were very simple. They like the text kind of flickered a little bit to make it look like it was kind of like an amateurish kind of movie. We're gonna be getting into spoilers in this episode anyway, so spoiler warning if you haven't seen it. It starts out telling you about kind of what happened, where these three filmmakers went into the woods, basically disappeared, trying to investigate the Blair Witch, and apparently their cameras and their videotapes were then found. So I believe found footage kind of existed prior to this movie, but I think this is one of the first movies that kind of really popularized the genre. And I think I was reading like a Wikipedia article about the genre, how somebody had likened found footage, like the genre currently, to slasher movies of the 80s. I think meaning that there's a lot of them, or that at least maybe a few years ago that there were a lot of these films, so like the VHS series, the Paranormal Activity series, and so on. Not all of them being great. So in the 80s we had some decent slasher films, but there was also a lot of them that were, not very good. So I think that's what they were talking about with that comparison. I like that it was filmed kind of like in a documentary style. So you had parts of the film that they were going to be using it within the film as a documentary, where the lead actress, which is I think all the cool thing was that all the actors were using their real names as well. So Heather Donahue playing Heather Donahue is giving a breakdown of they're going to the town to investigate stuff, and that's all done in I think it's supposed to be 16 millimeter. So they do that, but then there's also footage of them kind of just messing around, getting ready, like kind of like messing around with a camcorder. I like that the footage was grainy. I'm not sure like how they filmed it. Like um, if it was filmed using those actual cameras, or if it was done some kind of post processing. Sorry about that. I just had a Windows alert for some reason. Anyway, so the film was like very grainy. We had basically like I think like a handheld camera, a 16 millimeter camera, and I think like a videotape camera. So there was like three different cameras within the film, and each one had its own like different look to it, which is pretty cool. So I like that the dialogue was fairly realistic, where like I think it was well written to where this sounds like the way people would talk if they were like making a film, or just kind of like in the beginning of the film, just kind of getting ready to go on their like little expedition. Um, I like that the documentary bits were kind of intercut with the movie. So like they would film an introduction to the documentary outside of town. They did one on I forgot what the rock was called. There was a rock that they had visited on a river. They did another shot of that. I think the documentary stuff was again 16 millimeter. Um, I like that basically they go through. They eventually get lost. They start more and more weird stuff starts to happen to them. They find these piles of rocks in this formation, and then like one of the nights they're camping, they wake up in the next day, and there's these rock formations that weren't there, at least not shown the night before, and then these rock formations are just suddenly there the next day. Let's see what else I have here. So basically, they get more and more paranoid as the movie progresses. One thing, my only real issue with it was I guess they needed a reason to get them lost, so they have the map go missing, and then the reason that the map goes missing is that somebody kicked the map into a creek, and then they were like, so they're like, no, the map wasn't doing anything for us. I just threw it away. I think that was kind of my only real issue with the movie was that the map goes missing in a way that you could have easily said, oh, it blew away or something like that, and they just maybe don't even mention that the guy kicked the map into the lake, into the river. But that's about it. Let's see. So yeah, basically, again, map goes missing. That's when the movie starts picking up because they have no map. They're trying to get back. One guy's got to return like the video camera to wherever he got it from. One guy has work and all this other stuff. Let's see. Yeah, so Matt goes into the creek. The character or the actor playing Mike, I guess his real name is Mike as well, goes crazy because he's kind of like the one that was like laughing that he threw the map away. Um, there was one quote I really liked in the movie, and it was, "The camera is not quite reality; it's filtered reality." So the movie is presented through basically the lens or like what they would be filming. So there are sections that of the movie that are there is audio but no video because it's dark and maybe the camera like doesn't see anything or see everything. And then there's obviously sections missing, like so if they went to sleep, they would turn their cameras off and that kind of thing. Um, and then after that, like so, Josh eventually goes missing. So it's Heather, Mike, and Josh are three characters in this film, and Josh eventually goes missing, and then Mike and Heather are basically trying to find him and trying to find their way out. I think they're walking in circles at some point because they come to the same river that they had already crossed, or the same log that they had already crossed before. Um, Basically, what's this? And then there's the iconic scene in the tent where Heather is basically apologizing to the parents of both Mike and Josh and saying how scared she is. I think that's the shot that everybody kind of remembers. It's also the shot on the poster. So anytime a movie was kind of spoofing or parodying this movie, they would be using they use that scene specifically because that's the most iconic scene out of the film. What else do I have here? The final note I have here is that the monster in the movie, if the thing even exists, is never shown. So a lot of horror movies, like older horror movies, do this thing where, like Jaws does it, Alien did it, where you don't show the monster of the film until near the end of the movie. A lot of more modern horror movies do this to where they show it too much, or they show the monster more than they should. Um, I was reading some reviews for It Chapter Two, where some people thought the act like Pennywise was shown too much in the film, or he's walking around in broad daylight, even though I think that's like in a not a dream, but it's just like the guy being messed with psychologically. You see Pennywise kind of just walking around. So this thing I at least never showed the monster, and it kind of brings the audience into the movie to where is this legend real? Is it not real? Throughout the course of the movie, it starts feeling more and more real because there is a scene where they're chasing something through the forest. I remember reading on Wikipedia the thing they're actually chasing, I think, was supposed to be the monster, and the director had dressed up in some kind of like outfit, and they were running towards it. However, I believe in the Wikipedia article it says the camera like ended up not being pointed in that direction, or it was like off to the side, and they never went back and reshot it, which I actually think is a smart choice not to actually show that monster because some people in the town, when they're in the beginning of the film, are interviewing people, the local residents, about this legend. Some people believe it, some people don't believe it. There's one scene where there's two people that are fishing. I'm not sure like if they're supposed to be related or not, but one person doesn't believe it, the other person does believe it. So you definitely have this kind of thing where it's kind of leaving it up to the audience to say, is the Blair Witch real? Is it not real? And then letting the audience kind of fill in those blanks. I don't know what the actual lore behind the rest of it is because I know they did a couple sequels and a few other things. So I'm not sure if those cover any of the backstories. I might check those out at some point as well. But for a first movie in this book and for this series, I really liked it. Never for some reason never really got around to seeing it. The book kind of goes into the hype that came out around it, where it kind of came out of nowhere, showed up at Sundance, and then slowly got word of mouth out where people wanted to see it. People couldn't tell if it was fake or real. Um, Even though in the end of the film, in the credits, it does say the situations are fictional and all that. But there was definitely this like kind of like organic buzz around the movie, and it kind of just picked up steam. I remember reading somewhere where it was one of the highest grossing movies based on like the money spent on it. I think it was like $60,000 to film, or some low number like that, and it ended up making like a couple hundred million. So each, basically, they like earned like $10,000 for every like dollar spent on the production or something like that, something crazy like that, to where it just made, based on what was spent, made a massive amount of money. And then it spawned, a sequel, and I think maybe a couple other like things also kind of spun out of it. Again, popularized the found footage genre. It had been around before that, but I think this is the movie where people, like really started to take notice of that genre and started to, like make more films like it. Cloverfield is like another found footage film. Then we have the Paranormal Activity series and so on. But I really ended up enjoying it. Again, it was a fairly short movie, like an hour 22 minutes. Really like that it moved very quickly and felt, again, I don't know how they filmed it. If they actually filmed, like, they probably did some kind of post processing to the film to make it look grainy and all that kind of stuff. But that has been the Blair Witch Project, very first film in this book. I'm going to be moving on to the next film, probably within the next week or so, which is Following by Christopher Nolan, one of his earlier films. Maybe it might be his first film. I had to check his IMDb credits on that, but or his first major film, I should say. But that will be next. Going to be watching that within the next week or so. Don't know where I'm going to watch it. Just see what platforms it's streaming on. Might rent it from Amazon. I'll see if it's on Netflix, that kind of thing. But that's going to do it for this very first episode covering the Blair Witch Project. I really liked it. Again, we have Following by Christopher Nolan coming up next. You guys are all encouraged to watch along if you like, and I'll be doing that within the next week or so. So again, I want you to remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I want to thank you again for watching, and take care. Have a good one.